Welcome, fellow pop culture fans, to this episode of Nerd Teachers Anonymous. I am Mr. D, joined by my esteemed colleague, Mr. G, and we are
Hello.
here to talk all things. Hey, friend, we are here to talk all things nerd culture. First and foremost, we're nerd teachers, and we want to talk about our fandoms with y'all. And we're also doing this so we can learn how to use fancy new equipment we just bought, how we can blend old school teaching with new school technology. And we are here to be responsive to our audiences. That's what we want our students to pick up. So if
Mm,
you, the audience, has a suggestion for how to make this better or what you want us to talk about, please hit those comments, hit that like and subscribe. We will pick up on that. For instance, we are working on an Andor retrospective because we have heard that you want us to talk about that, and we're putting that together behind the scenes. I'm a big Star Wars fan, maybe not
oh yeah.
quite to the Trek level, but I love it, and I'm ready to talk Andor when you are, Mr. G.
Oh, definitely. And we got a lot of other opportunities out there. For example, I've done a lost movie script idea. I found a lot of lost movie scripts from both Star Trek, some Star Wars, actually, James
Mm,
Bond, aborted sequels to classic films, and so many other lost arts in cinema and television, which I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on and the thoughts of our audience too. Also, other things that are still on the table. Rings of Power, if you're interested in that, let us know. And also the states of the franchises. What are your opinions on the state of Marvel, Star Trek, Star Wars, things along those lines? So, with that said, we got a really special episode today on Avatar. It's an Avatar retrospective, an episode that you folks also suggested in the poll I posted. And it's finally here, folks, the sequel to the highest grossing film of all time. No, not Avengers Endgame, despite Disney's attempts, but we're talking about James Cameron's Avatar. And we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about our impressions of the first film. Then we're going to be talking about our impressions of the promotional material, which have just been released. And the details are as barren as the planet Earth probably is in Avatar world. Not a lot to go on, but I'm still curious to hear your thoughts, Mr. D. And then we're going to talk about our predictions of Avatar Way of Water.
love it. I think it's a great plan.
Wonderful. So, with that said, what are your impressions on Avatar 2009?
Whew, I was in college, my friend, when this thing came out. Gosh, it must have been a junior, sophomore in college way back in the day. I remember it because it was Cameron, and I love James Cameron, everything Terminator, everything Aliens. Yeah, I even saw Titanic. Um, but I was a big time Cameron fan, and I have to admit, at the time I was just intrigued. What is this director that I like? What's he putting out? And my only major disappointment at the time, I think, was it was in 3D because I was wearing glasses. And I don't know if you remember this, but or I don't know if you were wearing glasses back in 2009, but when you went to the 3D theater and you put on
Mm-hmm.
your bulky, crappy plastic glasses on top of your already glasses, to be honest, I had not seen a film in 3D since I'd been maybe to see Terminator 2 with my dad back in 95. I love
Mm-hmm.
that. I thought, or maybe Jaws. It was Jaws, I think.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, gosh, I was really looking for kind of an approximation of that experience, but it just wasn't. I just had a hard time seeing it. I actually liked the film so much better when I watched it at my place with all my friends on, like a 30-inch TV, no 3D. I think I could get into the plot a lot more. I think I could enjoy the experience a lot more. So it's been a minute since I've seen it, but I just want to say I do have impressions of going and seeing it. I do love Cameron. Um, the only thing I'll say is that without having rewatched it, I don't think I could have told you any of the names of the characters, and I
Mm-hmm.
probably couldn't have told you anything about the world
Yeah.
beyond how beautiful it was. So it is stunning. It is stylistically, just beautiful. It's like a video game that I want to download myself into and play. But like at the end of the day, I did rewatch it, and at the end of the day, without having rewatched it, I could not have told you about unobtainium, even though
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty obvious. And I could not have told you who Sigourney Weaver's character is. I still can't remember. Nor Jake. I know Jake, obviously. But yeah, it's just a little flat on the story is kind of my really only my negative impression. So how about you, my friend? Like, can you take yourself in a time machine back to 2009? What were you teaching in 2009? What were you up to?
I was about to teach. I was wrapping up some things in undergraduate before I started doing graduate school around that time. And it's funny you bring up the 3D glasses experience because my wife has the exact same problem. We
Yeah.
will not, if we go see a movie in 3D, she has to go wear contacts to make it work because otherwise you just can't pull it off. So Avatar came out in 2009, which I maintain is the last good year Hollywood ever had.
Oh,
Yep, in terms of crowd pleasing blockbusters. It's the year that Sherlock Holmes starred Robert Downey Jr. That movie came out. I enjoyed that one a whole lot.
yeah.
Quentin Tarantino gave us Inglorious Bastards, one of my favorite movies of all time.
Mm.
And he introduced the world to Christoph Waltz, an actor I can't imagine any villain playing. He did such a great job with Christoph Waltz, and Christoph Waltz did a great job. He is the quintessential villain. I will watch almost any movie he's in now because of the performance he made in that movie. And
Mm.
it's also the year where I could say I was a Star Trek fan without fear of reprisal, thanks to J.J. Abrams.
Yep.
So I felt at the time Avatar was a decent finale to a really strong year in cinema. As you mentioned, I loved the special effects and the world it created, just not in the way that James Cameron probably wanted me to, and I'll explain that in a moment. For me, the best part of the movie is the first 5 minutes where you see humanity traveling the stars in a way that's both high tech and sophisticated, but also extremely realistic. That zero G scene where the travelers come out of cryosleep was absolutely awesome. It pulled me into the story because it made me feel that this sort of thing could be accomplished in your and my lifetime.
Hmm.
And that was really cool. And unfortunately, how effective that scene is, because of that scene, rather, I am more interested in the human side of the story um, than anything Navi related, which is where I get into my criticisms. And my criticisms are very similar to yours, and that revolves around the story. This is James Cameron. This man left an indelible impression on my adolescence, specifically in terms of the Terminator and Aliens. I love those movies. Those are
Yep.
in the top 10 movies of all time. Those rank very easily in the top five. This
Wow.
man is known for his storytelling, making extremely compelling stories involving characters, involving plot, and all of that is missing here. What we ended up getting was bald-faced propaganda. Now, with that said, I agree with the propaganda, don't get me wrong, but there's a difference between compelling art and coercive propaganda. And we talked about this when we did our Picard review.
Hmm.
There is no complexity in story, characters, and themes,
Nope.
which is frustrating because you have a film with a runtime of almost 3 hours. It's 2 hours and 42 minutes. And with that kind of runtime, you have more than enough resources to build compelling characters, interesting subplots, and powerful themes. Instead, Cameron decided to dedicate that ample runtime to hippie techno raves around a tree and explaining how the blue cat people tame their dragons in a way that you would only see on planet Earth on a website where you got to confirm your age before you see it.
Nice.
So I've actually made a video on my channel, which involves one scene, and this scene would only be like 8 minutes long at the most, that could have fixed the story, and the link is in the description. I won't go into it now because we're trying to make this a short episode, but it basically asks this question. What if the unobtainium, the entire reason the humans are on planet Pandora, or technically it's a moon, what if that resource, unobtainium, did more for humans than sell for $20 million a kilo? That's all I'm going to say. You want to learn more? The link is in the comments below.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna go check that out. I didn't know you had that release, so I'll go check that out right after this film. That sounds good, like good stuff right there, my friend. I just want to
Definitely.
respond.
So
I
go
just want to
ahead,
respond
sir.
with 2 points if you're good with that. And
Sure.
okay, I do love James Cameron, but let's humanize him for just a minute. The guy kind of has a problem or a history with potentially plagiarizing other people's stuff. He
Yes.
got into some trouble with Terminator around Harlan Ellison
Harlan Ellison.
uh,
Yep.
story called Soldier. And
Hmm.
I've looked at both of them very carefully. And to me, you know, are there elements? Yes. Yes, there definitely are. Also, a piece called Demon with a Glass Hand,
I
I
was going to
believe
bring
was,
that one
yeah,
up. Yeah.
is also there. I mean, they are similar, but if you watch those two films side by side, or those, or both those pieces of cinema side by side, like, no, no, they're very different. They're very different too. So I'll say the kernel of the idea maybe comes from someone else, but the execution, I think that's what Cameron is great at. We got to
Hmm.
get Cameron a writer who is not going to plagiarize something and is not going to get close to plagiarizing something. Because Avatar originally, I want to say, had some maybe issues with that too. Is it like too close to
Yeah.
Dances with Wolves or something like that, or
No, but
there was one. I
there,
can't remember what it was. I'm
yes,
not trying to say he's a
there,
terrible person. He's not a bad person. He's
no.
not a bad filmmaker. He just gets really close to someone else's idea, and I think we can tell that his strengths are in the execution of the filming, getting behind the camera, being working with the cinematographer, working with sound design, set design, special effects. Bringing the departments together. That's his strength, kind of George Lucas style almost. I think it's
Yeah.
pretty clear that writing needs to go elsewhere. And it's not that if you're doing all the things that James Cameron doing and you're struggling with a little bit of writing, you're still one of the best filmmakers in the world.
Hmm.
So I don't want to throw him under the bus. Um, Literally, I couldn't, even if I wanted to. It's James Cameron we're talking about, but I just
Schwarzenegger
think,
could.
yeah, Schwarzenegger could like bring the bus down on him. Honestly, I just think
Hmm.
we need to get this guy some writing help a little bit, and that can take all of his great ideas to the next level. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to point that out. I just want to respond by saying, yeah, this guy is awesome. Definitely in the top 10, 15, action, sci-fi, all that kind of stuff. Just, I want to get him some writing companionship. Yeah, what's on your mind, my friend?
So real quick, yes, the Terminator plagiarism scandal is very clearly legitimate, and that's why you have at the end of Terminator that acknowledgement of the work of Harlan Ellison. But that being said, Aliens was something he wrote. He wrote Aliens, and
Yeah,
because he did a good job with Terminator, 20th Century Fox let him direct it too. But he wrote Aliens, and you could argue that that is completely original. That being said, though, there is documentation of an Aliens movie, an Aliens plot, an Alien sequel, in which the executives wanted to do the Magnificent Seven in space. And when you look at it from that lens, you could argue that Cameron took inspiration from the Magnificent Seven, perhaps. But yes, I would be remiss if I did not include Aliens as an example of Cameron's talent at writing, because he is really good at writing when left to his own devices. But yes, the plagiarism thing, especially in the case of Terminator, is um, it's very well documented. And at least, or I think there actually was a lawsuit involving plagiarism regarding Avatar. It wasn't Dances with Wolves, it was something else. But you're onto something there too.
my
So,
only thing with about Aliens though, my Mr. G, is that like it is. I mean, come on, that's kind of easy mode. Only because again, no shame, but no judgment. It's just like, aliens versus alien, very similar. Like, I mean, the script
hmm,
isn't verbatim, it's just the same beats, but put through an action, filter genre instead, which is work. That's work in writing and directing in and of itself. Um, I just can't give him 100% credit there because Ridley Scott really kind of laid some amazing foundation. But still,
yeah.
I'm not grading James Cameron. That's not my goal today. I just am trying to add some nuance to his writing background. But enough about that. Enough about that. I'll stop picking on him there. I think you make a great point by, maybe the Magnificent Seven wouldn't have guessed that in a million years, not in a million years. So that's interesting. Very interesting.
Certainly. So, what are your thoughts on the trailer?
Yeah, let's get to the trailer now. Okay, so I like the title, The Way of Water. I think that's really interesting. It looks good. There's not a ton to go off of, almost no dialogue in these trailers. Watch about
Yeah.
4 or 5 times to see what I could pick out, if we were gonna like, make our thumbnail one of those one of those things where we circle something in red and we're saying you missed this. But I didn't even find a lot of that, you know.
No.
Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking like we'll get into this when we get to our our expectations and predictions part, but I'm thinking, we got to do a soft kind of reset on the characters. A lot of time has passed. We're going to have to
Hmm.
introduce these new characters again. There's probably going to be, a good third of the movie dedicated to setting that up. And so I'm kind of interested to see what they do with the Navi. It looks like the Navi and the humans are kind of interacting a lot more side by side. Um, there's no super obvious military cigar smoking threat revealed in this one that I can see.
Hmm.
Yet I kind of feel like that's where it could be going because we see a lot of that military tech and those kind of mecha, loader kind of machines hanging out a little bit in the trailer. So, I don't know exactly. I read the description. It's like a sentence long. They're gonna have to leave their home, I think, because of a new threat. And
Hmm.
so, or they're gonna have to explore Pandora in depth because of a new threat. Is all I'm getting. So, yeah, without going into like I'm not trying to get into leaks or spoiler territory at all. That's just kind of what I'm seeing from this, a more human Navi kind of interconnected relationship. And it appears that Jake is back with
Hmm.
his love interest in number one, and maybe she's with child.
Yep.
I'm not sure. So those are just my basic impressions. It looks very similar, and lots of questions, not a lot of answers, but that's why they call it a teaser. What are you thinking about, my friend, regarding the impressions of the trailer?
So it's interesting that you bring it up in terms of there not being a lot of plot, because that's actually a criticism that I have. When you take a look at the original promotional material for Avatar, the teaser had no story elements at all.
Yeah,
It
I
just
noticed that.
involved a montage of people on Pandora getting into the pods, people fighting, a really good sound clip from 28 Days Later. They play the score to 28 Days Later while they're
Mm,
getting in the pods. That was really cool. So that happened the first teaser, and okay, cool. That's what a teaser does, as you indicated. But the second theatrical trailer, the second piece of promotional material, actually gave story elements for the first
mm,
Avatar. And
yeah,
that's something I sorely miss in this trailer.
yep.
But I'll get to that in a moment. In terms of positivity, I absolutely love the underwater scenes.
Sure.
It reminds me of the coral reefs where I swam when I was a kid in Hawaii. Really phenomenal, really technicolor, very crystal clear.
Mm,
Critics very justifiably point out that the Pandora scenes look like a Pixar movie, and they're right, at least for the above ground jungles and all that sort of thing. I feel like I'm watching a Pixar movie like Up or something like that in when
mm,
they're above ground, but when they're underwater, my goodness, it reminds me a lot of my childhood swimming in Hawaii. And when I was preparing for this trailer in particular, watching the material again, when preparing for this episode, rather, it reminded me of a time when I brought my now wife, then girlfriend, back home to Hawaii to meet my family, and I went to one of my swimming spots when I was a kid, Spencer Park on the Big Island of Hawaii, and all the coral reefs where I had swam around as a kid were all dead.
mm,
And
mm,
that moment is when I started getting religion about the environment, and including the kind of vibrant landscape might not be the best term to describe something that's underwater, but seascapes or oceanscapes.
yeah.
That is absolutely phenomenal, and that gives me nostalgia for something I honestly thought I might not ever see again. So that was good. That was credit where credit is due. My criticisms are, what is the story? Seriously, what is the story here? Why are Navi working with humans? I need to know something about that. I really profoundly don't care about Jake Sully's struggle with fitting into Navi culture. He says something about, oh, they see outcasts, and then somebody else says, well, I see you, which is not the catchphrase I think they want it to be. I just don't see it. And there's nothing really compelling about Navi culture. They say something about the way of water, which might really be a spoiler, where it says
Yep.
something to the effect of the way of water begins before you were born and continues when you die. I was like, great, now I don't got to watch the movie. Watching the footage that's only about the Navi is an absolute snooze fest. And I don't know if you've seen this movie, but I also have suspicions that Avatar: The Way of Water will have the same kind of climax as Black Panther 2: Wakanda Forever. I'm
Oh,
calling it now. This is part of my predictions. And I guess, speaking of plagiarism, it's not
yes.
plagiarism when you own both films and both production companies. So Disney's just borrowing from itself, which it's been known to do. Case in point, Rise of Skywalker borrowing elements, shots, and dialogue from Avengers Endgame. So
Oh,
that's
I thought you
something
were
I
gonna
was,
say Return of the Jedi.
or that too, or that too. So
Yeah.
well, what are your predictions for this movie? Is it going to be a billion-dollar hitter, or you think it's going to flop? What are your thoughts on that, Mr. D?
Well, okay, so to the last question, is it gonna be a hit or a flop? Gosh, I really want to say flop with all my heart.
Yeah.
Because I just don't think that the audience cares about this like it cared last time, simply because last time the big draw was 3D. It's a new movie. It's kind of like how Peter Jackson with The Hobbit was trying to make it about what was it, 60 frames a second or
A
40
high
frames a
frame
second?
rate. Yep.
High frame rate, yeah. Because we usually watch it in 42 or 38 or something like that. It's going to show how little I know about film. And he increased it to 60. And that literally
Yep.
was meaningless. Nobody went to The Hobbit to see that. I feel like that kind of gimmick is what 3D was before, but
Hmm.
people understood 3D and they got it. And people even went out and bought 3D TVs, not me, but other people did. And
Yep.
so I just worry that, like, okay, the big draw was supercomputer animation style, which every movie has now,
Yep.
and 3D, which I think was decidedly downvoted by audiences. And I mean, I want to say I saw two movies in the theaters in 3D in that time, maybe three. Avatar,
Hmm.
something I don't remember, and then I was going to say Cinderella. That's not it. Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland.
Oh
And after I
yeah. Yeah.
and after I saw Alice in Wonderland in 3D, I was like, no, never again am I going to pay $10 extra or $13 extra or whatever it was, so I can see this in worse vision with my glasses on. No thanks, never again. So I just think, just in speaking of, I don't even know, is this going to come out in 3D? What are they saying? What are they saying about its release?
I I'm not sure. There's evidence that appears to go back and forth on that.
Eh,
Um, but
eh.
yeah, to your point on movies that you've seen in 3D, Avatar was the one I saw in 3D. I saw Life of Pi in 3D with my wife. That was pretty good. The
Huh.
shipwreck scene was pretty good on that. And Gravity, we saw
Oh
in
yeah,
3D,
I forgot
and that
about
was good.
Gravity in 3D. Yes, yes. Gravity is actually a really good movie. I really like that film. I saw it at like 1 a.m. in New York City, and I
Oh
was falling
wow.
asleep. I know that's a whole story for another time. We'll save that for the Patreon account. But anyways, okay. So as far as I'm worried that it's going to flop only because it's technology. It was the big thing for the last film, and
Hmm.
that just does not exist here. And
Hmm.
another, so here's what I'm thinking about the storyline prediction wise. I think this family is going to have to stick together. They're going to have to leave an ideal place. It's going to be more of a migration story. We're going to be seeing a lot more of, different parts and aspects of Pandora. I asked myself, what is the way of water? And I think I've read enough, fiction, especially fiction that, like, predicates itself on Eastern religion and mythology to kind of figure this out. And so, what is the way of water? Water's got to flow. It's got to come together from many points to form, first a river, then a lake, then a flood, right? So maybe this is about traveling all over Pandora, having the different Navi, tribes come together, flow into, one new big thing to push back on, humans oversettling Pandora or something like that,
Hmm.
or I don't exactly know. I have this weird, like feeling about like a fern gully monster, like a fern gully oil monster. I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you. Like Yeah, we just got rid
Uh,
of the humans. Now we have to take on the personification of oil, and it's a big baddie. So we're going to run away, and oil and water kind of is a thing too. So like, I know I'm not going on. I'm going on a lot of just limbs here because I don't have any other really anything to base this off of. And I'm
oh
thinking,
my gosh.
if I know anything about James Cameron, it's going to be story second, and special effects, kind of and actors first, which can be really cool. But I don't know. I don't know. Uh, that's kind of what I'm getting. I'm getting just this migration story, this having to come together, kind of like water what has to flow together and downstream towards the ocean. They're all going towards to some big meeting place or something.
Huh.
You know what I'm saying? I feel like I watched and read a lot of manga as a kid and a lot of anime, and the way of water is you got to bend, you got to be flexible. You got to cut the stream in two and then come back together. Just kind of metaphors around that. But yeah, that's
I
that's my plot wise prediction. It's the best I got. What about you, my friend?
I love your prediction on that because all I thought of that was water good, keep water good. Just like the first one was tree good, save tree. But I
Yep.
really like the eloquence and verbose way in which you described what the way of water could be. That actually gets me excited for the film. But generally speaking, in terms of its box office take, very middling at best. I am absolutely convinced that the Avatar sequels helped bankrupt 20th Century Fox.
Dang. Yep.
I'm absolutely convinced of that for this reason and this reason alone. The films collectively cost $1 billion to produce, the second and
Mm-hmm.
third one. And when you have that amount of money in the hole and you're not seeing a return on it because Cameron keeps pushing back the release date because certain storytelling elements aren't there, um, you don't see that return. You got to get some sort of income somewhere else. And 20th Century Fox did not have a big hitter to offset that, at least with the first one. Um, Cameron made some concessions in terms of its financing and it paid off. That film made $2 billion, but then it cost $1 billion to produce these two films, and no return, absolutely no return. So
Tough. Mm.
that's a major problem. I'm convinced once again that these sequels bankrupted that studio. Another thing that is worth mentioning as to why the film will be middling at the box office at best is Cameron is making a certain kind of story for a mass audience that doesn't exist anymore.
Mm.
Um, in terms of its messaging politically and stuff like that, it reminded me of an article that I read. It was Cracked Magazine of all things, and it explained why James Cameron's Avatar was the financial juggernaut that it was.
Mm.
And they said it's a result of early Obama era, post Bush era optimism in terms of things are going to be better now. We're going to triumph over all the things that got us down, greed, financial greed,
Yep.
unchecked military aggression, those sorts of things. And it was for Cracked Magazine, an extremely very well thought out and very well sophisticated historical analysis of the movie. So if it assuming that was the winning formula for the first one, we are light years away from that as a culture now. I'm
Wow. Yeah.
anticipating a lot of culture war controversy, which could undermine the profit. It's to this, it's to that. It appropriates certain kinds of culture. I could see this playing out because certain
Mm-hmm.
spacefaring Navi have markings and stuff like that that match certain Pacific Islanders. The Maori definitely come to mind. One of the shots, you have a Navi that looks like the indigenous people of New Zealand, and I
Mm.
can see that going sideways because James Cameron, as sympathetic as he is to those kinds of cultures, may not have the right kind of credentials to do that respectfully. That is the first thing that comes to mind. Creatively, I'm anticipating more of the same. I absolutely like your way of water and the eloquence in which little drops of water come together to form streams and then rivers and then oceans. That's compelling. I think that's too clever for what we're dealing with here, though. Um, I'm
I appreciate that.
anticipating a sort of trees good, people bad, water good, people bad. It needs to be compelling and nuanced, and you're seeing that with films that are experiencing economic success that are less partisan and more just entertaining and less specific to a certain niche audience. Top Gun Maverick definitely comes to mind.
Mm,
Um, I don't see this movie, given how the predecessor worked, going that way. The only three things I'm interested in are first, how does Stephen Lang come back as Colonel Quaritch? These aren't things I'm excited for. These are just questions I want answered out of morbid
sure.
curiosity. Stephen Lang is listed as in the cast. He's top billed, and he
Mm,
died in the first one. So how
oh.
does he come back? Is it through cloning? Is Quaritch an android like Bishop was in Aliens?
Mm,
I'm more interested in that than any kind of political messaging or Navi thing that could be featured in this trailer. Also, Kate Winslet is in this movie, a James
nice.
Cameron veteran, and she
Oh yeah.
set a world record for holding her breath while filming a scene. She set a world record. She actually beat Tom Cruise, who held the record for Mission Impossible 5, Rogue Nation.
Mm.
And I want to see what that scene is. How does it play out in the movie? And my third question is, will the story develop more nuance when dealing with why the humans need the unobtainium? Once again, I'm not holding my breath for that,
Yeah.
if you'll take my
Yeah.
meaning on that. So, um, and that's all I have to say on that. What are your thoughts as we wrap up this episode?
You know, I was kind of like mulling over your idea about the politics and where we are as an audience. And I think you're right. You know, back in 2009, climate change and everything with the environment still felt like something that we could overcome. If we recycled hard enough, if we voted hard enough, if we, brought our own bags to the grocery store, you too could make a difference, right? But I feel like that has all been replaced by and nihilism isn't the right word. I don't want my philosophy friends to come for me, but by total, a very simple pessimism about the world
Mm-hmm.
right now. I feel like we're a lot more of a pessimistic people. We don't really think we can band together and defeat the guys who are coming for our unobtainium. You know what I'm saying? I just
Yeah.
like you were saying, I wonder what message they made, because it can't be about like just let's just get together and defend the trees. Because if it is, that's just gonna feel that was kind of out of place in 2009. Like tree hugging was kind of replaced with other environmental acts, though it was a very obvious symbolic one, and it's still fine, and I got no problem with it, in a grand scheme. But I just wonder what they would do. Like maybe I kind of want to go back to my idea. Maybe it is about kind of grassroots forming these little coalitions, but that's not what it's gonna be. It's gonna be get your guns, get into that forest or get into that water and sneak around a bit and then go shoot some soldiers. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many sneaking around with guns clips in this, or bows and arrows and stuff like that. Yeah, I kind of would love them to do an environmental message movie in 2022 or
Mm-hmm.
23. No, I guess it's coming out in December,
No,
so
it's
end of
next
22.
month.
So yeah, but you're right. I just don't know where that would fall. So I guess we wait and find out. We wait and find out, and then
Definitely.
we'll do a longer review when the time comes.
Looking forward to
Uh,
it.
any other shout outs you want to make about this before we close it down?
I'm good. If you folks want to see how a single scene would have fixed this Avatar series and would have made this a lot more compelling science fiction, there will be a link in the description below. And as always, let us know what you'd like us to talk about in future episodes. We've got a couple episodes in the pipeline right now, and just thank you so much for tuning in, folks.
You know it. You know it. This has been for all of our fellow pop culture fans out there. This has been Nerd Teachers Anonymous. We're so grateful for you hanging out. Hit that like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments what we should be breaking down And let us know if we're a little too new school or a little too old school, because remember, that's one of our goals is try to bring those two together, just like streams in a river. All right, Mr.
There you
G,
go.
have a great one. Take care.
You too. Hope you enjoyed that video. Many thanks to the students who helped make this video possible. And if you enjoyed this video and haven't already, please subscribe and share this video with other people who might enjoy it. I'd absolutely love to see Sci-Fi High School grow in numbers. With that said, till next time.